Hi guys, going to clean the CV carburetors. These are Mikuni CV carburetors, constant velocity. They have diaphragms on the top, and this is off a GS850, 1982 GS850. These carburetors were very popular in the 80s and late 90s, late 70s and the 80s, and you'll find them on Hondas and Yamahas and Suzuki and whatnot. A lot of people are afraid of cleaning their carburetors. They think it's a very daunting task. I'm going to actually show you how to do it. It's very simple, very easy, and we're going to get to it. The very first thing that you need to do when you take off your carburetors, you see there's a lot of dirt and gunk and all kinds of stuff around here. Before taking the carburetors apart, you want to clean that off first. What I use to clean this off is just regular gasoline. I use a paintbrush, or for hard to get spots, use a toothbrush or watercolor brush. However you can get to it is fine. I don't recommend washing them with like a pressure washer or anything. You don't want to get water inside of here for now. And so for the first thing, I just wanted to show you how dirty it looks. This is one side of it. This is the other side. And this is just outside, and once we get to inside of it, you'll see what a mess it is. And this is actually off a running motorcycle. I ride this motorcycle every day, and this is how it gets. So you can imagine if your motorcycle has been sitting for a long time, it's going to be a lot worse shape. I'm going to go ahead and give this a good bath, and I'm going to bring it back here, and we're going to start tearing it apart. One more thing before I do that is when you have the carburetors on the bike, loosen these screws right up here on top of the diaphragms, and the screws at the bottom. Don't worry about the rail. If you have a 4-carburetor system, don't worry about the rail. You don't have to take that off because we're not rebuilding anything. We're just cleaning everything. Don't take this off, but the float bolts, they all have 4 screws. So this you can do it on a bike, but when you get it off the bike and take it out. Word on the screws, some of these little buggers might not come off easily. The best thing that I always do is just put the screwdriver on top of the screw and hit it with a hammer, and make sure you use the screwdriver that you're not going to break a handle or anything, or if you have an impact driver, use the impact driver. And when we put them back together, I'm going to put an anti-seize on each one of these screws so I don't have this trouble later on. Some of these screws might not come out no matter what you do to it, so the best thing to do is, this is the head of this screw. I'm not sure if you can see it. I had to actually file it down and use a chisel to open it up. What you can do, you can use a Dremel to cut a slot on the top of it and try to turn it with the screwdriver. However you can get it off, they have to come off. So long story short, you need to loosen these screws right here. All right, let's go for washing. Okay, I washed everything and it looks a little cleaner. I got all the oil and grease and dirt and everything off the body. So the reason that I do that is because I'm not separating these carburetors. So I don't want to leave them inside of the cleaner for 2 hours or 3 hours or whatever. I'm cleaning each one individually when they're connected to the rail. So if you have only one carburetor, by all means, you can skip the first part of it. Or if you're taking them all apart, but we're not doing that. From here, the name of the game is actually to start taking off pretty much everything. Don't worry about these bolts on the top. They're all the same size. You can just put them in one pile. So let's get started. The first thing I'm going to do is just take off the diaphragms, and you'll see in a second. At the top, there are 4 screws that they hold it in. Take the spring out, put it aside. This is what the inside of the top looks like. What you can do, you can just put the screws right on top of it. This really doesn't matter because we're going to wash this really, really good after this. Now, this is the diaphragm. Be very, very careful with this right here. This is kind of like a rubberized thing and you don't want to break it. If it's sticking pried open with a little screwdriver, grab both ends of it and pull it out. Now, this is the slide right here. This is the needle and this is the diaphragm. You want to check to make sure there is no hole, there is no rips or anything around here. If it does, you need to change that. If it's a pinhole, you could possibly fix it with a little dab of RTV or something like that. I've actually tried it with in a jiffy with a garbage bag, and it works for a couple 100 kilometers just to get you out of a bind. But generally, if this is damaged, you need to replace it, and they're very expensive, so hopefully it's not. This one looks good to me. There's nothing wrong with it, so I'm just going to go ahead and put it aside. So I'm going to do the same thing for all the other rest of them. Just take out the slides, and we're going to get to the bolts right after that. All right, from the top, this is what you will see. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to turn this whole block around, and we're going to start working on the bolts. Now, these are the carburetor bolts. This is where your gas actually accumulates, and it feeds the rest of the carburetor. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to open all these 4 bolts right on the top. You can either use a screwdriver or you can use a 10 millimeter. 10 millimeter is a lot easier for me, so I'll just go ahead and do that. I've already loosened them, so. Remember, these drain plugs, they have a little washer underneath them. Don't forget to take that off if it stays on the actual carburetor body. Make sure to take that off. It's a rubber washer, and just put it back on the bolt, just like this. Okay, the next thing is to take off all the screws for the bolts. Now, the difference between the screws for the bolts and for the top of the slider is the screws with the bolts, they have a little lock washer at the bottom. That's how you can distinguish between them. And they're a tad bit longer. So even if you put them together, you know how to recognize them. So we're going to go ahead and take out the bolts. I unscrewed everything, so this should come right out. You don't need to force it or anything, and you can see the garbage inside of the wall. We're going to clean that. Here's another one. Some of these bolts, they might come out with their gasket attached. For example, this one. If you can see, the gasket is sticking to it. Don't worry about that, we're going to separate that. If the gasket is in good shape, you don't have to change that. There's nothing wrong with it, and if it's not leaking, don't touch it. Go ahead and take off all this stuff. Okay, these are your floats. What happens when the gas fills up the bowl? These floats will start going down and down and down. You see, it's springy a little bit. There is a needle right down here that stops the flow. Now, if you have a motorcycle that is constantly leaking out of your bowl and leaking everywhere, that's when you want to take this off. Otherwise, I don't have any tools. I'm in South America right now. I'm trying to clean this. But to take off the floats, you need to remove this pin. Right underneath it here, there's a pin. And these pins are pressed in. To remove it, you can't just bang on here. You're going to break these posts right here. These are aluminum posts, and you're going to break them. So don't bang on them. Let me put something under here so I can show you how to remove them. I'm not going to remove them today, but just in case you need to. You need to take off each individual carburetors first to begin with. Then you need to put a little socket or something underneath it to support this post right here. And once you've done that, then you can start using a very small punch and a hammer, and don't force it out too much, and start tapping the pins out, and that's how you can take them off. I'm not going to do that because I don't have any problem with the leakage or anything like that, and it's just fine, and it's just too much work for doing all that stuff right now. The next thing that you're going to take out are your jets. This is your main jet, the big one. Right next to it, where the screwdriver is, this is a rubber plug. Take it out. This is what it looks like. Now, underneath this, there's another jet, which is the pilot jet. So we need to take these 2 jets out on each one of these carburetors. Now, for taking the jets out, make sure to use a screwdriver that it fits this thing. Don't use the smallest screwdriver. You're going to damage the jets. Already, this is the main jet, and there's a small washer underneath it, which is this one. Make sure you don't lose that either. So take a main jet and the washer underneath it out. And you don't have to put these in order or anything. They're all the same size, so you can just throw them in your pile that we're going to wash. Now, underneath of this jet, if you can see, right here, you need to tap this out. That's the needle jet. It comes out of the other side. So you can just do it with a screwdriver right here and just a small tap and it comes right out, and push it out. And it comes out of the top of the bowl, and this is what it looks like. And you can see there's a complete hole underneath right here. So that's your needle jet. Put it on a pile. Again, this is all the same size. You don't have to keep them separate. And do the same thing for the rest of them. Okay, we've taken out all the jets. Now we're gonna go ahead and move to the pilot jet. The pilot jet, you need to use a very small screwdriver, kind of like this, the one that I'm using right now. And it's seated deep inside, so put it in, make sure that you have a good bite, and put pressure on it so you don't damage it. My hand is slipping, I'm gonna get a rag here. Okay, once you remove the pilot jet, turn the carburetor around, give it a couple tap on the top, and it should come right out. And these are the rest of the needle jets here. This is what your pilot jet looks like. Do the same for the rest of them. Now on this side, we don't have to take off anything else, so we're gonna go ahead and turn it over to this side. Now, these are the air jets. One right here, and two on each side. We're gonna go ahead and remove these as well. And this is pretty much it. Now I'm going to take this outside and I'm gonna shoot it with a carburetor cleaner, really, really clean, and I'm gonna clean it off and I'm gonna bring it back inside. In the meanwhile, what I'm going to do, I'm going to put all of the jets and everything else that I've taken off of these carburetors inside of a carburetor cleaner for 2 or 3 hours. You can leave them inside of gasoline if you want to. You can put them in a white vinegar if you want to. No matter whatever cleaner that you're gonna use, just soak them first. Then, each one of these things have holes. Let me see if you can see it here. You need to grab a needle and clean each one of these holes, on all of them. On your jets, on pretty much everything, every hole that you see, stick a needle in it. And we're gonna come back right after that. Okay, now that everything is clean, I'm going to put everything back together. I've already put anti-seize on all of my screws and bolts, so they're not gonna get stuck. Not on the jets, don't put any anti-seize on the jets. That's not the way to do it. The first thing we're gonna put back on is the main jet, and the reason for that is because we're gonna install this light and the needles just have to actually go under that. So before we can do anything else, this is the first thing that we have to install. So you need a main jet, a washer, that goes from this side, and you need your needle jet. Just grab it, not from the side that it has the cut notch on it, on the other side. Grab it with a needle nose plier, just like that. Turn your carburetors around. Go from the top hole, go from the side hole right here turn it around, adjust it with your finger, get it to where it's supposed to go. I don't know if you can see. Push it with your finger. Put your finger on it so it doesn't go anywhere. And when you need to adjust it, push down and twist with your finger. Push down and push up. Push down and push up until you get it to where the notch is. Almost there. This one went too far. There you go. So, see? It's in. Now, you need a main jet. Don't forget the washer. Put your finger, again, put your middle finger, the flip finger inside, and put the main jet up. And try not to drop it like me. That's it. Do the same thing for all of them. Okay, I'm going to do this slow and I'm going to try to do a very close. Grab it with the needle nose like this. Actually, sorry about that, maybe a 1/4 inch. You need to go up before you go down. Go up before you go down. So when you put it in the hole, you go in like this. Adjust it with your finger a little bit. Once you started going in, middle finger inside, turn it around, and push. And what you're doing when you push it with a screwdriver, it goes in. When you push it back up, it actually twists. And you can twist it with your finger at the same time too. So that's how you line up the notch here. Line up the notch here. There you go. It's in. And you just put your main jet and the washer. There you go. Now I have all the main jets here. So the next thing we're going to do is put the pilot jets back on. Now the pilot jets are the long, skinny ones like this. And they go one here, one here, one here, and one here, right next to the main jets. These are the easy ones, so just go ahead and drop them in with the slot right on the top. And go ahead and tighten them. Don't tighten the hell out of this thing, because if you get one stuck in there, and you're not going to be able to ever get this thing out. Just like drilling it. Go ahead and use the screwdriver and tighten the main jet. The same thing here. Don't over tighten. The bottom part is done. We're going to get to the float. That's a very, very important part. I'm going to get to that. But before we do that, I'm going to put the slides back on. Now, the needle slide, if you pull on it, you can see that it comes out. There's another springs inside of there, but we're not disassembling this. This is not a part of the cleaning. But what we're going to do is to put all the rubber part down like this. Just like this. Then grab it with your finger from the middle part, line it up, and drop it. And the form is already there. Now you got to be careful. There's a little tab right here. If you can see, this tab actually has to match the tab on the carburetor. Let me turn it around for you so you can see. This little tab, it has to match this tab right here. once you put it in, don't put any glue or grease or anything. This is anti-seize on my fingers, that's why it's getting on there. Do the same thing. All the way down, like this. Grab it. You can line up the tap before you drop it in as well. That's it. And dab it down. And you see, the spring has to go here. Sometimes when you put it on, the spring might go right here. This is not going to work. The spring has to go in the middle. And I've already put anti-seize on all the bolts, not the jets, just the bolts. So the next time that I take this apart, I'm not going to have that problem again. Okay, for the third one, there's this bracket right here. This is for your choke cable and this is for your throttle cable. And this goes on the third carburetor. The carburetor goes on a bike like this. If the front of the bike is right here, these are the carburetors. So this is the number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4. And they correlate with the number of the cylinders, obviously. See, this one is sticking out a little bit. Make sure that they're inside of that channel. If they're not, you're going to have a problem. Put a cap on it. And this goes like this. You see this little channel right here? You see where the screwdriver is? That's where your wire goes. And that's a part of that controls the butterfly. This is the linkage right here. Okay, the top portion is done. There's not much to do up here. We're gonna go back to the bottom portion. Now, this is a very, very important step, so listen up. And I'm gonna go ahead and zoom in very closely so you can actually see what I'm doing here. We still have these rubber plugs. I haven't put them on yet. I don't like to put them on just yet. I'm gonna adjust the float height to begin with. The last thing I'm gonna put this on, then we're gonna put the bolt back on. So let me go ahead and zoom in so you can actually see what I'm doing here. Okay, these are the floats right here. I'm using my screwdriver so my finger is not in the way. They have to be at a certain height from the bottom of the bowl for your bike to function properly. And every single one of these floats, they have to be at the same height. So we're gonna go ahead and adjust these. For the CV carbs, for the Suzuki GS850, for these specific carbs, it doesn't matter what motorcycles they are on, they're 22.4 millimeters, give or take 1 millimeter, so plus or minus 1. 22.4. Now, the best way to do it is with a good ruler. And where you can measure this is not from the lip right here. This is not where you measure. You're measuring from this place that the gasket sits, right here. I don't know if you can see it or not. This is where you're going to measure. So when I put my ruler on, I'm gonna put it right down here. Now, you're measuring from here to where? You don't measure up to here. This is not the place you measure. You measure from the start of the curve, right here. So from here to here, it has to be 22.4 millimeter or 23.4 millimeter, whatever that you go, try to get it bang on to begin with. And if you do that, make all of them at the same height. So go ahead and put your ruler on. This is my ruler. Now I want to go ahead and see what I'm reading here. And the float is not depressed down, you see? The float is on its own. This is reading 20. Can't see. 21, 22, 22 and a half. This is perfect. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna do the same thing for all of the floats just to make sure that they're right on. Now let's say that your float is either too low or either too high, you need to adjust it. Now, you see this little tab right here? This little tab right here? Now, what you can do, you can hold onto your float and push on this tab. What you're doing here, you're bending the tab down, or you put the screwdriver under it and you pry it up. If you push it down, it's going to bring the float height higher. If you're bringing it up, the float is going to go lower. This is how you adjust it. Don't mess with this too much. I mean, you don't want to break this part, but that's how you adjust your float. This one is perfect. I'm going to go ahead and check the rest of them just to make sure everything is good. Once that's done, well, we're going to go ahead and put the bowls back on. Another thing that you need to know about the float and the needle underneath it is when you drop your float, it should sit on top of the needle. It should not push down on the needle by its weight. So if you can see the needle, if you can look at it from the side right here, you should be able to see it. If you see the needle is going down when the float is on top of it, that needle has to be changed. That needle is no good. So you need to take this out, order the parts, and actually get this right. But I've checked all of this right here, and they're all good. I adjusted the height of the floats. They were about millimeter to millimeter and a half off. I adjusted all of them. And this one that you see right here, it actually has the gasket on it. So I compensated for the gasket because I didn't want to rip the gasket out. So I know the gasket is about a 1.1 millimeter judging from one of these right here. So this is ready. What we're going to do, we're going to put the bowls back on. Before we do that, don't forget your rubber caps that it goes on top of the pilot jet. Push them in. That's it. This is what it should look like. Time to put the bowls back on. And they only go one way, so make sure that you put it in the right way. This one doesn't have any gasket on it. I know the gasket is still sitting here. Very little force. Don't crank on it or anything. Remember, these are all aluminum threads. If you go too far, you'll break something. That's it. This is the completed clean carburetors. They will be good for another, I don't know, 10,000 miles, 20,000 miles, 30,000 miles, whatever. It depends on where you ride in, how clean your gas is, and how much you take care of your motorcycle. So they're good to go. Couple of things that we need to talk about actually right now before you put this back on. This is my fuel hose. You see how tough it is? How stiff it is? This is no good. And as you might be able to see it in a video, but this is all cracked up. Change this. Change this every 2 years. Change this every year because this is right next to a lot of heat and you don't want to have a leak and you don't want to have a fire. Change this right away. Now, once you've done your carburetors, empty your tank, flush your tank too, and clean your petcock as well. Because there's no reason to clean your carburetors and you have a bunch of crap on top that is going to feed it again. So take your petcock off and at least clean the screen, and you might be able even to change it. If it's too dirty and you can't find it, you can just snap it off, throw it away. That's one thing you can do. Then put an inline fuel filter here. That's another thing you can do. So the petcock is already clean. I already oiled everything and it functions just fine, and I've never had a leak or anything like that. On this motorcycle, I'll always put it on reserve because the more you play with this handle, the more chance you have that your petcock is going to break anyway. Put it on reserve and don't worry about it. Now, when you install these carburetors on a motorcycle, now that you clean them, there is no gas inside a bowl. So you have to put your petcock on a prime to actually fill it up. Give it, I don't know, 10 seconds, 15 seconds until everything gets filled up. Then after that, put it back on reserve or back on normal. Then go ahead and start a motorcycle, and it should start right up. This is another tube right here. This is a vacuum tube that it goes on the side of a petcock, right here, and it goes on the motorcycle, on the side of a carburetor as well. Where the hell ever it is, right here. This one right here. That's where the tube goes. And that's it. So go ahead and take off your carburetors and clean them. If you've never cleaned your carburetors before, if you just bought a motorcycle, if you had your motorcycle, I don't know, for 50 years and you've never done it, you'll be amazed what kind of performance gain you can gain out of it. And it will just run smoother and much, much better. So there it is. Thank you for watching.